trial. Michelle Troconis, the defendant, accused of helping her boyfriend murder his estranged wife. This was in May of 2019. She's charged with conspiracy to commit murder, tampering with physical evidence, and hindering prosecution in the murder of this mother of five, Jennifer Dulos. And again, her body has never been found. She was reported missing on May 24th in 19. She dropped the kids off that morning at a nearby school, goes back home. And police say that they believe Fotis Dulos, the estranged husband, was hanging out in the garage waiting for her. Classic lying in wait. So she gets home after dropping off the kids. They say that's when he killed her and cleaned up the scene with apparently a lot of paper towels, if you believe them. He then died by suicide while awaiting murder and kidnapping charges himself. He was living with the defendant. That's how we finally get to her. He's living with Michelle Troconis at the time of Jennifer's disappearance. Investigators say they've got surveillance video of both Fotis and Troconis driving around, dumping trash bags that were found to contain Jennifer's DNA. So we're catching up on some testimony from the DNA analyst, Kristen Maydell. She began yesterday. We saw the cross-exam. We saw the rehabilitation. Well, now we got a little bit of recross. Here we go.
Now, you said some of the testing that was done was confirmed as blood, correct?
No.
Nothing?
We did screening testing for blood. We didn't do confirmatory.
All right.
And the stuff we talked about yesterday.
All right. So if we were, again, if some of the screening was done, someone confirmed that it in fact was blood for some of these swabs, right?
Not that I'm aware of. We just did screening.
All right. But you testified yesterday that you would never come into a courtroom and testify that a presumptive test was sufficiently scientifically reliable for you to swear that it was blood, right?
I object outside the scope.
Well, the testimony yesterday, the first question addressed whether or not there was confirmatory testing. The second question addressed what was testified to yesterday concerning this witness testifying that she would never come into a courtroom and say that a certain substance was blood just based on a screening. So that testimony went in yesterday. The court would allow it, overrule.
Yes, I testified yesterday that I would never testify to a screening test being confirmatory for blood, and I'm not saying I'm doing that now.
You just use it as, you would agree that KM, which I think you just talked about, you call that a screening, it's a presumptive test, right?
Call it a screening test, yes.
All right, and that's so that you avoid the necessity of having to prove that something is blood or not blood, right?
No, we don't necessarily not want to prove that it's blood. We just want to see if something possibly can be blood, so then we pass it on for DNA testing. So if you would agree with me that at least blood, if you were able to retrieve it, would have DNA, right? Yes.
But an object, just because it tests positive presumptively for KM, would not necessarily mean that the DNA came from blood. That's my point.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, thank you. I have no further questions.
I have nothing, Judge.
Thank you, Maydell. Thank you,
Clearly affirm as the case may be that the evidence you shall give concerning this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God or upon penalty of perjury.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you please state your name and spell it for the record?
Mark Davison, M-A-R-K-D-A-V-I-S-O-N.
And your affiliation?
Connecticut State Police.
Thank you.
You may be seated.
Good afternoon. Your Honor, may I inquire?
Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Fine, ma'am. Thank you.
Sir, are you currently working with the state police?
Yes, ma'am.
What is your current position, please?
I'm currently the commanding officer of the Office of Administrative Services. I'm a lieutenant colonel.
And how long have you worked for the Connecticut State Police?
Just about 18 years now.
And could you please briefly just describe some of your career path with the Connecticut State Police, please?
Yes, I started out on patrol in Troop G in Bridgeport. I worked on patrol for 3 years. Took a test for the Major Crime Squad. I spent 9 years with the Western District Major Crime Squad, primarily a little time as a street detective, 2 years as a crime scene detective. I was promoted to sergeant during that time period. I supervised the criminal investigative unit up at Troop L in Litchfield, and then I was the supervisor of the crime scene van for the next approximately 5 years. Subsequent to that, I was promoted to lieutenant. I ran a barracks up at Troop L for 2.5 years, was promoted to captain. I was the commanding officer of the academy for 2 classes, took 1.5 years, a short period of time at Western District as the acting commanding officer and promoted to lieutenant colonel. And I've been up at headquarters for the last 1.5 years.
And briefly, could you describe some of your educational background?
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in engineering from the United States Naval Academy and a Master of Forensic Science from the University of New Haven.
At the University of New Haven, did you specialize in a particular topic?
Part of my education there consisted of research, which I did on bloodstain pattern analysis specific to area of origin reconstructions and measurement error, and an independent study relative to conducting bloodstain pattern analysis.
What exactly is bloodstain pattern analysis?
So bloodstain pattern analysis is an examination of the size, shape, distribution of bloodstains in order to determine the mechanisms that created them. So it can be used in certain circumstances to determine sequence, origin, position, location, determine a mechanism that created the patterns, support or refute testimony, or eliminate certain circumstances that could not have happened.
Could you explain some of your training and education that you received specific to blood pattern analysis?
Specific to blood stain pattern analysis, I have approximately 600 hours of training. That training consists of 2 basic courses that I was a co-instructor on, 2 advanced courses in blood stain pattern analysis, a course in report writing and documentation, an advanced course in fluid dynamics related to blood stain pattern analysis, an advanced course related to fabric, blood stain pattern analysis on fabrics, and a BPA level 2 course. In addition to that, I'm a member of the International Association of Blood Stain Pattern Analysts. Since 2014, I've attended the last 9 training conferences, which are 4-day conferences related to blood stain analysis and other topics. In addition to that, I have in totality 1,250 hours of training relative to death investigation and crime scene investigation. That includes my blood stain training.
And with respect to teachings, have you held any teaching positions?
I'm currently an adjunct professor at the University of New Haven and Central Connecticut State University. I've taught for the last 8 years at the University of New Haven, graduate and undergraduate level courses in bloodstain analysis, crime scene investigation, forensic technology, and introduction to forensic science, and an officer-involved shooting course at Central Connecticut State University.
And have you conducted blood pattern analysis before?
Yes.
About how many times?
I've worked on or consulted on approximately 42 cases relative to bloodstain pattern analysis. My experience relative to bloodstain cases is approximately 130 cases. I've written or peer-reviewed reports on bloodstain pattern analysis approximately 25 times.
And was this in your capacity as a Connecticut State Police Trooper?
Yes, ma'am.
And have you testified concerning your results before?
Yes.
About how many times?
4 times.
Have you testified or consulted for the defense before?
I have consulted with defense before.
Okay, and just where was that?
A case out of Michigan.
In May of 2019, were you asked to respond to 69 Wells Lane in New Canaan?
Yes, ma'am.
Who made that request of you?
That was Detective Riley from Western District.
Do you recall what day that call came in?
The 25th of May, 2019.
What did you do?
I responded to the scene approximately 1,300 hours. It's 1 o'clock. Met with the crime scene unit, got a brief from Detective Riley and the team relative to the case they were working on and the specifics that they were asking that I do, which was to examine bloodstains that were located in the garage and on a vehicle that was within the garage at 69 Wells.
And how did you use a blood, can I just call it BPA? Is that okay if I just say BPA, bloodstain pattern analysis?
Fine with me, ma'am.
Okay. How did you use BPA in evaluating the garage that day?
Relative to the garage in terms of the stains that were located there, a portion of them lent themselves to a reconstruction to determine essentially an origin or an area where a blood source originated from. In addition to that, bloodstains on the vehicle also lent themselves to a partial reconstruction relative to the origin of those stains. So in addition to that, I documented bloodstains that were located within the garage on that vehicle, and then on a Suburban, another vehicle that was part of that case.
Did you conduct your analysis or reconstruction that day on the 25th?
In terms of documentation, yes, the reconstruction piece was done on the 27th of May.
Why a different day?
At that time, the crime scene unit had been at that scene since the early morning hours of the 25th. So they worked through the night. By the time we cleared on the 25th was approximately 5:30 p.m. So they had been up all night and all day. So the decision was made to return on the 27th in order to continue processing, to put them back on a sleep cycle that was conducive to efficiency and work.
Did you return to 69 Wells on 5/27?
Yes, ma'am.
And who was with you when you returned?
At the scene that day were detectives Riley, Pearson, LaPriori, Hazen, Keppel, Downs, McGavin, and Clabby.
And Jamie Pearson, what was her role?
Detective Pearson had been assigned to do the sketch map of the scene.
Does the sketch map assist you in your analysis?
Some of the measurements do, or assistance with the measurements that I need to take are part of that process. Yes.
Now, did you write a report of your analysis or your findings?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you review any documentation prior to, actually, strike that if I may, just have one moment. Did you personally examine, or what did you personally examine prior to writing your report?
I'd just like to have before the answer, if I could just have.
Yes, if I can, Your Honor, I just want to. Sir, if I can, Your Honor, just with respect to only what you personally observed at a scene, can you please describe to the jury what you physically examined? I'm sorry, it's a really bad question. Let me put it this way. When you're at 69 Wells Lane on 527, what did you look at?
I looked at the interior of the garage, the Range Rover that was in the garage.
Now, did you also look at a Chevy Suburban?
Yes, ma'am.
Where were you when you looked at this Chevy Suburban?
At the New Canaan Police Department on the 27th.
And with respect to the Range Rover that was in the garage, did you examine that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And where were you when you examined that?
At the 69 Wells.
And did you review photographs that were perhaps made by other people involved in this case in your analysis?
Yes.
And based on your findings in your review of that documentation, did you write a report?
Yes.
So, State Policeman Mark Davison, a lieutenant there, they've got more than 60 on the list of law enforcement folks. This is going to be interesting, though. This guy is a blood pattern kind of guy, so we're going to get some sense of what he believes happened to cause the blood patterns that were found in that garage, in one vehicle, in another vehicle. Stay where you are. Coming back with more of this.